Fantasy General Election is the UK's favourite, and only, politics-themed fantasy football game. In our game, you pick a team of 11 general election candidates and then score points based on how they do on polling day. The player who finishes top of the leaderboard will win a fantastic money-can't-buy prize, this Fantasy General Election Champions Mug. So, how does it all work? Every player has £100,000 to spend on their team, and every general election candidate costs £1 for each vote in their constituency's majority. So, for example, Theresa Villiers has a majority of 4,209 in Chipping Barnet, and so therefore it will cost £4,209 if I pick her in my team. One thing worth noting is that every candidate in the constituency costs the same. So, let's imagine I don't think Theresa Villiers is going to win, sorry Theresa, and I actually think the Labour candidate Dan Tomlinson has a better chance. He will still cost £4,209, even though he's not the current MP. The game has certain selection rules that every team needs to meet, so you can't have more than 5 candidates from the same political party, and you have to have at least one candidate standing in each of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. There are also rules on your team's formation. You must have one goalkeeper, between 3 and 5 defenders, between 2 and 5 midfielders, and between 1 and 3 strikers. You are able to move your team around in different positions, but unfortunately you can't just pick 9 players up front. The positions your players can play are determined by whether or not they are the current MP. So, for example, the Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey is the current MP for Kingston and Surbiton, and as he's defending his seat, he can play in goal, defence or midfield. Mark Fox is standing in Kingston and Surbiton for Reform UK, and he's not the current MP, and because he's attacking, not defending, he can only play in midfield or up front. Once you've picked your team, don't forget to choose your captain, who will score double the number of points, so this probably needs to be the candidate who you think is likely to record the biggest win. The final thing to say on team selection is that you will lose 10,000 points for every space in your team that has not been filled. So make sure you pick a full team of 11 players unless you are incredibly confident. Your candidates will score points based on their performance in the election. First of all, there are no prizes for finishing second, so any player that doesn't win their seat and become or remain an MP scores no points at all. The players that do win their seats will score 1 point for every vote in their new majority. So, for example, one poll recently suggested that Stephen Flynn, the SNP MP in Aberdeen South, would win his seat with a new majority of 2,679 votes. And if this does happen, he will score 2,679 points for your team. However, there are also extra points on offer for players who are not the current or the sitting MP. Bristol Central is currently a Labour seat, but at the time of writing, Carla Denyer of the Green Party is the hot favourite to win. So let's imagine that she does win by 10,000 votes exactly, to give us a nice round number. She will receive 10,000 points. But that 10,000 votes is on top of the votes that she needed to overturn the Labour majority, which is 16,696. So she'll receive the previous MP's majority as well, giving a whopping 26,696 points, or 53,392 if she's your captain. In general, and relatively speaking, attacking candidates do score more points than the sitting MP, but only if they win. Peter Dowd is the Labour MP for Bootle and has a majority of more than 34,000 votes, so the game will allow you to pick an opposition candidate in his constituency, but good luck overturning that. Basically, challengers may score more points, but there are plenty of cases where the incumbent MP is likely to be the better bet. How we define the sitting or incumbent MP is obviously very important for point scoring purposes, and in most cases this is the candidate who was the MP when Rishi Sunak called the general election. For example, Rishi Sunak himself was the MP for Richmond and Northallerton, so he is the sitting MP in that constituency. In some cases, the sitting MP has changed parties since the last general election. So Jeremy Corbyn is a good example of this. In 2019, he was elected MP in Islington North as a Labour candidate, but he has now changed to become an independent. He's still the sitting MP, but we recognise the seat as being independent rather than Labour. In some cases, the sitting MP has stood down or is standing elsewhere. So Labour's Alistair Strathern is the current MP for Mid Bedfordshire, but is standing in Hitchin this time around because the constituency boundary has changed. So the new Labour candidate for Mid Bedfordshire, Marwish Mirza, is not technically currently an MP, but for point scoring purposes, she is classified as the incumbent. There are a couple of seats where there's actually no incumbent because the sitting MP is an independent who's standing down. Andrew Bridgen was previously the independent MP for Reigate, but is not standing for election this time around. We can't really replace one independent with another, so in this example, everybody is the sitting MP in Reigate, and there are no bonus points awarded for overturning a majority. Finally, there are some MPs who've just decided to stand in a completely different seat altogether. Richard Holden is currently the Conservative MP for North West Durham, but for one reason or another, he's decided to stand in Basildon and Billericay this time around. In this situation, because Basildon and Billericay is already a Conservative seat, we just assume that he is the incumbent MP and kind of just forget that North West Durham ever happened. However, if Basildon and Billericay was, let's say, a Lib Dem seat, he would take on the role of a challenger instead. I think that's just about everything you need to know about Fantasy General Election 2024. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them in via the contact form on the website. Thank you very much for playing, and good luck.